Could we be on the brink of a major global crisis? From the heart of Europe to the shores of Asia, powerful military forces are flexing their muscles. The world holds its breath as tensions mount, and new developments are causing alarm. Recently, the sight of Russian and Chinese warships circled ominously around Japan raised eyebrows not just in Tokyo but all the way to Washington, D.C. What does it mean for global security? On September 16, Japan's defense ministry released startling information. A Russian intelligence vessel has been patrolling the waters off Honshu, Japan's largest island. Just days earlier, they noted that a Vishnu-class ship had been spotted in the vicinity of Miyakojima, heading southwest. Furthermore, from September 13 to 15, this formidable ship roamed the waters near Okinawa Island, gathering intelligence as it maneuvered toward the East China Sea. The message was clear: vigilance and surveillance would continue. That ship, the Kurily, is a relic from the Soviet era, over 300 feet long and displacing nearly 3,500 tons. Equipped with sophisticated surveillance technology, the Kurily is not just watching, it can also fight back if threatened. With AK-630 rotary cannons and surface-to-air missile launchers on board, this vessel means business. It charted a course through the Tsugaru Strait before drifting south near Japan's outlying islands. But the Kurily wasn't alone in its journey. China's naval presence was equally significant. Records show at least 4 Chinese ships were operating in the region. On September 13, 2 Luoyang 3-class guided missile destroyers were spotted sailing between Okinawa and Miyako Islands. The following day, a Jiangkai 2-class frigate accompanied by a supply vessel traversed the same waters. Alarm bells are ringing as this show of force coincides with the Russian ship's operations. Why this increased military presence at what appears to be a strategic moment? In a chilling twist, this collaboration between Russia and China follows a high-profile meeting between President Putin and President Xi Jinping, where advanced military technologies were showcased, raising fears of potential conflicts, including in Taiwan. As both countries ramp up their military expenditures and showcase their naval power, what could this mean for the future? Experts warn that the fabric of international relations is fraying, and the likelihood of aggressive military action is rising. The coordinated maritime maneuvers of these two nations demand scrutiny and spark anxiety among allies and adversaries alike. In June, similar patterns emerged when the Kurily was seen in the Sea of Japan, heading early on a journey toward Russian waters just as the USS George Washington prepared to deploy. Coincidence or a calculated move to assess naval capabilities? As Russian submarines mingled with their Chinese counterparts in a historic joint patrol this past August, the portrayal of benign intentions seems increasingly difficult to believe. With the shadows of Russian and Chinese vessels creeping near Japanese waters, the question remains, what are they truly preparing for? Are Japan and its allies facing an unwelcome surge of aggression, or is there still hope for dialogue in a steadily escalating conflict? The world watches as this unfolding drama could change the course of history, leaving everyone to ponder the precarious balance between peace and war. Earlier we learned the vessel can push 16 knots, about 18.5 miles per hour, and stretches over 300 feet long, displacing 3,470 tons. Its bow hides a pair of massive radomes, each housing satellite link antennas that beam data back to shore. Though built for spying, it carries defensive firepower, 2 IK-630 rotary cannons and CN-8 surface-to-air missile launchers. A Japanese map shows the ship slipping through the chilly Tsugaru Strait north of Honshu, then slipping south toward the remote islands of Japan's southwest. From September 13 to 15 it slipped past Okinawa, left the Philippine Sea, and entered the East China Sea. Japanese air and sea units have been tracking every move. Could a single spy ship really tilt the balance of power in the Pacific? The tension rises as the water trembles with distant engine droning, the salty air thick with diesel scent, and a fleet of foreign warships looms on the horizon. The previous paragraph described the spy ship's route and armament. What if those foreign warships were not a coincidence but a coordinated signal? On September 13, 2 Chinese Luoyang 3-class guided missile destroyers were spotted steaming southwest between Okinawa and Miyako, their hulls sparking white foam under a rising sun. The next day a Jiangkai 2-class frigate and a Fuji supply ship followed the same track, their radios crackling with static. By the 16th another Luoyang 3 destroyer turned north, cutting through the same strait toward the East China Sea. The low thrum of turbines mixed with the salty spray, and the scent of heated metal filled the night air. Japanese observers noted the timing exactly when the Russian spy vessel lingered nearby. Why did 4 Chinese warships appear just as the Russian ship lingered? Their presence paints a picture of synchronized maneuvering, hinting at a message aimed at allies and rivals alike. The last section recounted the arrival of 4 Chinese ships alongside the Russian spy vessel. Is this the prelude to a larger naval ballet or a covert showdown? Earlier this year, Russian and Chinese submarines swam side by side through the Sea of Japan, the first joint patrol of Kilo-class and Great Wall 21 vessels, their hulls humming in unison beneath the waves. Weeks later, Presidents Putin and Xi convened, unveiling laser weapons, nuclear ballistic missiles, and massive underwater drones in a grand parade. Simultaneously, the U.S. carrier USS George Washington left Yokosuka, her decks echoing with marching boots and the distant roar of jet engines. The combined presence of these forces, the synchronized routes, and the timing of the deployments form a tangled web of intent. What will the next surge of steel and steel-clad resolve bring to the waters surrounding Japan? The ocean holds its breath, waiting for the next ripple. Tensions are escalating around the globe, particularly in Asia, where the presence of military forces from Russia and China is sending shockwaves through countries like Japan. A recent incident has caught the attention of Tokyo and Washington, with a Russian intelligence vessel, the Coralie, spotted maneuvering off the coast of Japan. But it's not alone. In mid-September, Japan's defense ministry reported that the Coralie was actively patrolling the waters near the islands of Honshu and Okinawa. This ship has a rich history dating back to the Soviet era and is equipped with advanced surveillance technology. Its reported movements from the seas surrounding Miyakojima down to the East China Sea raise alarms. Adding fuel to the fire, a fleet of Chinese naval vessels has also been observed in the area. Just days before the Coralie's sighting, no fewer than 4 Chinese ships, 2 Luoyang 3-class guided missile destroyers alongside a frigate and supply vessel, were confirmed passing through the strategically important Miyako Strait. This narrow passage is crucial for China's navy, allowing access to the expansive Pacific Ocean. Why is this troubling? The simultaneous presence of Russian and Chinese military vessels, coinciding with their increased diplomatic ties, suggests a coordinated show of strength. Recent high-profile meetings between Russian President Vladimir Putin and China's Xi Jinping aimed at consolidating military cooperation have only heightened these concerns. At a military parade, China showcased new technologies, including laser weapons and sophisticated drones. This display, coupled with ongoing military investments, signals a potentially dangerous shift in regional power dynamics. With whispers of a Chinese aggressive stance towards Taiwan and Russia's own military endeavors in Ukraine, analysts are understandably anxious. The synchronized operations of naval forces near Japan raise critical questions. Are these actions simply routine maneuvers, or do they point to a more sinister intent? As observers continue to monitor the situation closely, the world watches warily, wondering if a larger conflict could erupt from these increasing provocations. What will happen next in these increasingly volatile waters? Recent reports reveal a chilling pattern. Russian and Chinese warships have been prowling dangerously close to Japanese shores, not just once, but repeatedly. Back in June, the stealthy Russian spy ship Coralie was spotted navigating the Sea of Japan, sailing through the Soya Strait, the watery divide between Japan's northernmost island, Hokkaido, and Russia's Sakhalin Island, on its way toward the Sea of Okhotsk. Just 2 days later, a Chinese intelligence vessel, the Tianlangsing, tracked a route from the East China Sea into the Philippine Sea, near Japan's southern tip, Kyushu. Crucially, neither ship crossed any legal boundaries, they stuck to international waters, never breaching Japan's territorial limits. Yet, the timing screams strategic choreography. Why did these shadowy vessels appear precisely as the USS George Washington, a powerful American aircraft carrier, was departing its Yokosuka naval base near Tokyo? Could China have been seizing a rare chance to scrutinize the carrier's movements, or was there a more innocent explanation buried deeper? As if this wasn't unsettling enough, August brought an unprecedented sight: Russian and Chinese submarines patrolling side by side in the Sea of Japan, the first joint submersible operation between these two major powers. This silent underwater dance involved 2 Kilo-class submarines, the Russian RFS Volkov and China's clandestine Great Wall 210. The latter's exact identity remains a secret since it spent most of the mission submerged, even as the Russian vessel breached the surface. Accompanied by a supporting warship and specialized submarine rescue ships, this dual patrol moved stealthily through the Sea of Japan toward the East China Sea before each submarine slipped back into its home waters. This rare cooperation underwater hints at something bigger brewing beneath the surface, something that could shift the naval balance and raise alarm bells globally. Are these maneuvers innocent displays of military partnership, or the prelude to something more sinister? What unseen currents are pulling these powerhouses together, and how will Japan and the wider world respond as these shadow operations intensify? The smell of salt and diesel hangs heavy in the air. The cold touch of the ocean whispers secrets of looming conflict. Stay alert. The waters around Japan have become a volatile chessboard, and the next move could change everything. Previously, we saw two submarines, one Russian, one Chinese, surfacing intermittently as they slipped through the Sea of Japan, then into the East China Sea before returning home. Their covert coordination wasn't an isolated act. It followed intense joint military drills carried out in early August near Vladivostok and the Sea of Japan. These exercises, known in Russia as Maritime Interaction 2025 and in China as Joint Sea 2025, involved a diverse fleet rehearsing complex maneuvers. The sounds of naval engines echoed across the misty waters, the sharp scent of salt and diesel lingering in the air. Despite public claims of purely defensive intentions by Russia's Pacific Fleet, and China's vow to deepen their strategic partnership, the unsettling presence of such power plays beneath calm waves brings uneasy questions to the surface. What does it mean when two mighty navies rehearse war games while assuring the world they mean no harm? In 2021, this pattern began with a grand naval parade. 10 warships, including destroyers, carved a silent line near Japan's Honshu and Kyushu Islands. The move raised eyebrows and tempers alike. Tokyo called it a provocation, yet Beijing insisted they had stayed fully within international law, refusing to acknowledge any threat in their joint cruise. They said the mission was to hone cooperation and safeguard regional stability. But how stable is a region when such powerful fleets shadow its every ripple? Every year since then, Japan has watched fleets of Russian and Chinese warships, frigates, and submarines threading these waters like predators marking territory in the deep. Could these carefully choreographed displays be signals of an alliance strengthening not only in rhetoric but in silent, simmering ambition? When the engines fall silent and the fog closes in, what unseen battles might be brewing beneath the surface, waiting for a signal? The stakes grow higher with every passing patrol, and the question lingers: how long before these shadows clash in a confrontation none want but many fear? In a world on edge, tensions intensify between military giants, threatening to plunge nations into chaos. Recently, Japanese waters have transformed into a strategic chessboard, where Chinese and Russian warships are maneuvers that have sent shockwaves of alarm not just through Tokyo, but across the globe, even reaching the halls of power in Washington, D.C. Is this the prelude to a storm that could engulf the Pacific? On September 16, Japan's defense ministry revealed unsettling news: a Russian vessel had been prowling the eastern coast of Honshu for weeks. The ship, named Coralie, is a formidable Vishnu-class intelligence-gathering vessel. Built during the Cold War, it stretches over 300 feet and boasts advanced surveillance technologies. Equipped not just for defense but also with offensive capabilities, 24-hour eyes on the horizon. It travels through strategic ocean routes, moving stealthily from the Tsugaru straight down towards Okinawa's shores. But this ship was not alone. As if choreographed, 4 Chinese naval ships appeared, bolstering military might near Japanese borders. Are they simply passing through, or is this a calculated show of strength? Together, the presence of these two nations' vessels creates an unnerving alliance. The joint operations, notably bolstered by the recent camaraderie displayed at a high-profile summit between Presidents Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, raises questions about their true intentions. With China unveiling cutting-edge military tech that evokes fear across the region and rumors of a potential aggressive push towards Taiwan, the specter of conflict looms. Is the world witnessing the rise of a new, menacing partnership? Every year, Japan braces itself for maneuvers from these two powers, keeping a vigilant eye. However, sightings of warships and submarines have taken a darker turn since recent military drills began involving US and Japanese forces, known as Resolute Dragon 25. Imagine the atmosphere: the scent of ozone in the air from the nearby exercises, the sharp sounds of ships cutting through water, and the tension crackling like static electricity. Marines train relentlessly, their mission could one day dictate the fate of nations. The exercises designed for high readiness include challenging conditions, reflecting the urgency of preparation for unforeseen conflicts. The very essence of this drill is encapsulated in the words of Master Gunnery Sergeant Andy Anderson, who stated, "Timing is everything, even a moment's hesitation can alter outcomes in war." As U.S. forces sharpen their skills, could this provoke a response from their adversaries? Meanwhile, the vigilant eyes of Japan are hyper-focused on these provocations. They are aware but unable to deter the growing strength of their potential rivals. Are these military movements merely intimidating exercises, or do they indicate a far more dangerous strategy? As tensions mount, the world waits to see which way the tide will turn. What happens when the next naval encounter unfolds in these treacherous waters? What echoes of this maritime shadow game will resonate across the globe? A sudden flare of steel cut the sunrise over Japan's eastern coast. Why did a Soviet-era spy ship appear where only tranquil fishermen had sailed for decades? The sight sparked a chorus of alarms from Tokyo to Washington, a warning that the Pacific's calm might be a thin veneer. The story begins with a grim reminder that the line between survival and defeat can be as thin as a radar pulse. Earlier, commanders stressed that today's drills meant more than training, they were a showcase of readiness, a signal that allies could count on a swift, decisive response. Master Gunnery Sergeant Andy Anderson said the exercise proved the force could act anywhere, under any conditions. Now the ocean itself becomes the stage for a tense showdown. From September 9, a Russian Vishnu-class vessel named Coralie slipped past Miyakojima, then drifted south of Okinawa, finally veering into the East China Sea. The ship stretches over 300 feet, weighs 3,470 tons, and cruises at 16 knots, about 18.5 miles per hour. Its hull bristles with radomes, antennae, and twin AK-630 rotary cannons ready to shred missiles, while SA-8 launchers glare like cold eyes. The metal hum of its engines mingled with the salty breeze, the scent of oil lingering on the seafoam. As Japanese patrol aircraft traced its path, an uneasy question rose: what hidden payload did the Russians hope to harvest? The Russian presence was not alone. For Chinese warships slipped through the Miyako Strait at the same moment, their silhouettes cutting through the turquoise water like predators. Two Luoyang 3 guided missile destroyers, a Jiangkai 2 frigate, and a Fuji supply ship threaded the narrow channel that links the Pacific to the East China Sea. Their movements echoed the recent summit of President Putin and President Xi, where dazzling laser weapons, nuclear missiles, and massive underwater drones were unveiled. The thunder of distant artillery drills and the smell of diesel smoke seemed to whisper a coordinated ballet of power. On September 15, the U.S. deployed a Typhoon missile system at Iwakuni, its twin launchers capable of firing Standard Missile 6, range 290 miles, and the land attack Tomahawk, range 1,000 miles. From that base the system could reach deep into China, the Russian Far East, North Korea, and even Taiwan. Japanese officials watched the launchers pulse to life, the ground trembling under the roar of engines, while diplomats in Beijing condemned the grave disregard. Lieutenant General Roger Turner declared the exercises a bulwark for peace, a stark reminder that any aggressor would meet a decisive response. The lingering mystery remains: are these naval maneuvers random shows of strength, or a synchronized intelligence sweep aimed at decoding the very weapons now pointed at them? As submarines from Moscow and Beijing glided side by side beneath the waves for the first joint patrol, the ocean's depths concealed more than machinery, they hid the future of a region perched on the edge of conflict. Tensions are skyrocketing across continents, with Europe and Asia on edge as military forces ramp up their activities. The potential for a dramatic international confrontation looms. The most recent flashpoint? Japan, where Chinese and Russian warships have begun encircling the nation, igniting alarms not only in Tokyo but also resonating all the way to Washington, D.C. What is really at stake in this high-stakes game of naval chess? On September 16, Japan's defense ministry publicly revealed unsettling news: a Russian intelligence-gathering vessel, the Coralie, had been operating along the eastern seaboard of Honshu. The Coralie, a relic of the Soviet era, spans over 300 feet and is packed with state-of-the-art surveillance technology. It was confirmed that from September 13 to 15, this imposing vessel maneuvered dangerously close to Okinawa Island, heading into the East China Sea. The Japanese authorities are on high alert, deploying both air and naval forces to monitor the Coralie's every move. But a single ship poses a challenge: the presence of 4 additional Chinese naval vessels deepens the threat. The Japanese Defense Ministry tracked 2 Chinese guided missile destroyers, sleek, silent shadows in the water, sailing toward the Pacific over the same period. They were not alone; a supply ship and a frigate trailed closely behind, adding to the growing unease. This surge in naval activity raises crucial questions. Are these aggressive maneuvers mere exercises in show of force, or are they signifying potential confrontations ahead? The stakes intensified following a high-profile meeting between the leaders of Russia and China. Their public display of unity was underscored by an extravagant military parade showcasing deadly new technologies, from laser weapons to formidable underwater drones. Meanwhile, the world holds its breath, as fears rise over possible escalations in conflict. particularly concerning Taiwan. Russia, embroiled in its costly war in Ukraine, remains steadfast in its military pursuits, revealing a dangerous trend of aggression through increased expenditure on its armed forces and recent incursions into NATO airspace. The synchronized naval activities of Russia and China near Japan spell trouble for the stability of the region. This ongoing saga of military posturing isn't an isolated event, it builds upon a troubling history of Russian and Chinese ships shadowing Japanese waters. In June, for instance, the Coralie was spotted in the Sea of Japan, closely followed by a Chinese spy ship, igniting speculation about their intentions. Despite their legal navigation through international waters, the timing of their movements raises eyebrows, suggesting that espionage could be on the agenda. The situation escalated further in August when Russian and Chinese submarines teamed up for a joint patrol, a stunning first that occurred amid significant military exercises. Their underwater collaboration, involving known warships, unveils a sense of urgency and a potentially formidable alliance. What could this mean for the delicate balance of power in the Indo-Pacific? As both nations conduct their military drills, it becomes increasingly evident that they remain wary of America's island chain strategy. This strategy aims to counterbalance China's influence in the Pacific, utilizing the first and second island chains as defensive barriers to limit Chinese expansion. Japan is a critical piece of this geopolitical puzzle, surrounded by essential maritime routes. It's a tense game of strategy, with both sides positioned for confrontation. Could the formations of naval fleets in the region be harbingers of something much larger? The encroaching presence of Russia and China would suggest an ominous chapter in global politics, a scenario that could reshape not just the Pacific but the dynamics of international relations on an unprecedented scale. As the currents thrum with uncertainty, only time will reveal the true intentions hidden beneath these turbulent waters. As tensions simmer around the globe, a storm brews beneath the surface. Recent events in Asia have left the world on edge. Major military forces, including the powerful alliances of China and Russia, are making bold, provocative moves that threaten regional stability. Just as news broke about Chinese and Russian warships maneuvering dangerously close to Japan, alarms began ringing in capitals far away, from Tokyo to Washington, D.C. On September 16, Japan's defense ministry shared unsettling information. A Russian intelligence-gathering vessel, identified as the Coralie, had been spotted navigating the waters off Japan's eastern coast for nearly a month. The Coralie, an imposing vessel stretching over 300 feet, boasts advanced surveillance technology that can gather critical information from its surroundings. Simultaneously, this naval giant is equipped with weapons for self-defense, suggesting a dual function that raises the stakes. With the backdrop of diplomatic tension, this ship's presence is more than just routine surveillance, it's a blatant challenge. Compounding the situation, four Chinese naval ships were observed nearby during the same period. The Japanese Defense Ministry documented their movements, revealing the deployment of guided missile destroyers and support vessels actively traversing the area. This coordinated show of force has left Japan on high alert, as Chinese naval activities continue unabated, signaling a concerning trend of military bravado. Flashback, just last summer, the salty air of the Pacific had been a reminder of peace as local fishermen cast their nets. But the rumble of warships invading those tranquil waters now disrupts that peace, echoing the fear of something much darker looming on the horizon. With both Russian and Chinese naval might in close proximity, analysts speculate on the implications of this growing partnership. As China unveils groundbreaking technology, missiles that travel at phenomenal speeds and evade defenses, its military ambitions are clearer than ever. Rumors of military exercises off Japan raised eyebrows and intensified suspicions of an impending offensive strategy. What comes next? The stakes could not be higher. The United States is taking notice, bolstering its defenses in response to these maneuvers to deter potential aggression. Will the increased presence of warships escalate into a direct confrontation, or will diplomatic efforts defuse this precarious situation? The clock is ticking, and the world holds its breath as the region waits to see if these rising tensions will lead to a new chapter of conflict. As the balance of power shifts, one question looms: are we on the brink of war, or is there still time to avert disaster? The world watches and waits. A storm brews over the Pacific, and the question looms: what if the Navy shadows off Japan turn into a permanent fleet? The sea smells of diesel and tension. Radar pings echo like distant thunder. Will the islands become a chessboard for hidden powers? The previous whisper warned of more Russian and Chinese warships prowling Japan's coast. Now, Tokyo and Washington face a critical choice. Both must steer carefully, lest the patrols become a catalyst for aggression. Can diplomatic winds shift, or will the noise of war drums grow louder? The scent of salt mixes with the metallic tang of armaments, while officials ponder a looming clash. Earlier we sensed the danger, now the finale arrives with a shocking twist. Just as the world braces for a US-China confrontation, a sudden diplomatic overture surfaces from an unexpected source, hinting at a joint peace initiative. Will this surprise move defuse the volatile standoff, or is it a fleeting illusion before the ocean erupts into conflict? The horizon shimmers, and the answer hangs in the balance.